Greetings YouTube, this is Toy Customizer Wake Angel 2001, bringing you the last part of Supersonic Boom 1996's SATAM commission, Antoine D'Coolette. We were first introduced to Antoine D'Coolette in the SATAM cartoon. He was just the guy. He was a comic relief character, the cowardly French guy. Every time he'd go out on a mission, he'd always be shivering and scared and begging to go home. Although I don't think that the fans really give him enough credit, because if he was really a coward, he would find a way to get himself out of missions. He wouldn't keep going. So, despite the fact that he was terrified all the time, he always went on the missions because he knew his friends needed him. And, that takes courage. I mean, he may be a scaredy cat, but he's no coward. That's what I'm trying to say. Antoine's other purpose on the show was to be in a love triangle with Sonic and Sally. He'd always be butting heads with Sonic for Princess Sally's affection and writing her poetry and stuff. This is because Antoine's father was a royal knight, and as it's his birthright, he's technically a royal knight too. Perhaps in another universe, it would have been Antoine who would have married Princess Sally. Of course, he never really had a chance with her, because everybody just found him to be, annoying. Although, it's funny to watch the show in retrospect, because you can see scenes where he and Bunny are spending a lot of time together, and nothing ever really developed between the two of them over the course of the show's run, but it's kind of hilarious to think about in retrospect, because the relationship between Antoine and Bunny didn't really get started until the Endgame saga of the comic book series. Yeah, between issues 46 and 50, a whole bunch of crap happened, and Antoine and Bunny's part of the story is that they got captured and taken to Down Under, where they liberated a prison camp run by Croc the Bot with the Down Under freedom fighters. And they did a lot of stuff and relied on each other for survival, and I guess sort of a battlefield romance kicked in between the two of them. I mean, there might have been hints to something between the two of them before this, but when the Endgame saga came out, I was like 11 or 12. I wasn't really savvy enough to pick up on subtext. Alright, so discounting a subplot where for about 30 or 40 issues he was replaced by his own evil twin from an alternate universe, the Antoine of the comic book series has actually grown and evolved and is pretty much like an asset to the team. He is much stronger. He is a skilled swordsman. I think partially because of his relationship with Bunny, he learned, he kind of, well, I'd hate to say it, but he kind of grew a pair. I mean, don't get me wrong, his character is still played for laughs quite often because that's what he's best at, but, he is actually the kind of guy who can go into the battlefield and actually fight and hold his own. Just because he doesn't have superpowers like Sonic or cybernetic enhancements like his wife did, that doesn't prevent him from actually being a useful member of the team, which I find really cool. It's great to see Antoine grow and develop like that. Of course, any regular fan of the comic would probably remember the lovely wedding between Antoine and Bunny Rabbit. It was really a great issue. I mean, there was a lot of emotion tied into this. Like, Antoine had just returned from the Antiverse and found his life in shambles, but Bunny had been there and she had basically been waiting for him this whole time because she never stopped loving him even though he had broken up with her. And this was a really powerful story arc that had reached an end, and it was a great wedding scene, and it was really interesting to see the roles reversed when Bunny lost her cybernetics to Ixis Naugus' magic, because she'd always thought that the reason she was able to fight was because of her cybernetics giving her super strength and the ability to fly and shoot lasers and stuff. And when she lost all that, she wasn't sure she would be able to continue fighting. But Antoine, in a nice bit of role reversal, gave her the strength, telling her that despite not having an ability like that, she could still be useful to the team, just like he was. Currently, in the comic book, Antoine is in a coma. Complications of Metal Sonic self-destructing in his face. Yeah. Well, here's to hoping that he comes out of that, huh? So, Bunny's there for scale. She's watching two other figures get turned into her husband. Although, it is gonna mostly be Tails. The silver is just there because I needed his boots. Oh, and, you know how the silver figure's kind of short? At first I thought that was because he had short legs, but once I pulled him out of the boots, I found out that from hip to ankle, they're the exact same length as Tails' legs. So, that means that Silver's legs are actually longer because his boots are a little taller. That means the reason that Silver is short is because his head is so tiny. It has nothing to do with his legs. The boots are a relatively simple mod. I just had to add a little bit of material to the toe to make them look more combat bootish. And then a nice red paint job to make them look like Antoine's. And they're ready to stick onto Tails' legs. The butt of the figure is pretty much just Tails' with a little clay tail stuck in there. Has a little bit of a fork in the fur, just like Angel the dog's. And, painted coffee brown with a light tan belly. And you got Antoine's legs. The arms are a simple repaint affair. I painted the hands coffee brown. And the arms are painted blue to look like the sleeves of his shirt. And the glove cuff becomes the shirt cuff. Because, you know the rule, characters that originate in the cartoon series don't wear gloves. But they do wear shirts, apparently. So the shirt is just Tails' torso, sanded a bit smoother. There is a paper thing going around, which I used to be the red seam, although the collar is just directly painted on the plastic. And, that's Antoine's shirt. This brings up a weird comparison. Usually in the video game, only the female characters wear any clothes. But in the Adventures of Sonic cartoon, Princess Sally went the entire first season without any clothes except for her shoes, while Antoine, he wore a little outfit. I mean, it's the Donald Duck style with no pants, but he's wearing clothes. It's an interesting reversal from the video game. Okay, so Antoine's a coyote, not a fox. So his head has some minor alterations. As you can see, with the prep work, I cut off Tails' cheek tufts, removed his bangs, and cut a little bit into his ear to give it a different shape. Then I sculpted on Antoine's bits. This includes the upward turning cheek tufts, as opposed to the downward turning ones that Tails has, his cute little hairdo thing, a couple of eyebrows, and a really long skinny snout, which is kind of upturned. I think that's a joke at the French, like the whole looking down his nose. I mean, he's always doing that because it's literally turned upwards. Antoine's head is every bit as hard to paint as Sally and Bunny. I mean, I don't know what's worse, the fact that it's entirely light colors that require multiple coats to look even, or that it has this pattern with the stuff going around the eyes and the hair and ears and painting this is just a headache. The cheeks look a little bit bulgy, but that's because I wanted to make sure that the clay on the cheek tufts would be thick enough that it wouldn't fall off. So, let's take a look at the completed Antoine figure. Isn't that just adorable? The one thing that he's missing are the pads on his shoulders. I just couldn't think of a way to fit them in there that wouldn't bang into his cheek tufts and limit the articulation of his arms. So he's just wearing a regular shirt. And of course he does have to have his wedding ring. It's exactly the same as Bunny's wedding ring, a little piece of craft foam painted gold and glued onto his finger. Antoine also has a sword. This one is one of those little sword-shaped cocktail toothpicks that you can get like 20 of them for $1 at any local supermarket. I used foil paper to cover the blade, and the hilt is painted to look, like a sword hilt, golden brown. It fits into Tails' hand unmodified. So, any of you who want to give swords to your Sonic figures, all you need is Tails' right hand and one of these little cocktail toothpicks. Food for thought. And here is the lovely couple united at last. Bunny came out just a little bit taller. That has to do with Wave's torso being a little longer than Tails' torso. I tried intentionally making Bunny's legs a little bit shorter, but it just wouldn't work. So, here are all 4 figures that Supersonic Boom 1996 wanted me to make. Sally, Rotor, Bunny, and Antoine, the original 4 core freedom fighters from the SATAM cartoon. And I think the best way to conclude this series is with this. A big old group shot of pretty much the entire SATAM cast, including a stock Sonic and Tails figure to round out the Freedom Fighter group, and my old Dr. Robotnik custom. If only I had a Snively. And no, I have no immediate plans to make a Snively in the near future. But still, look at this. I like to call this the action figure line that should have happened in 1993. This is Toy Customizer, Wake Angel 2001, signing out.